You're at a dinner with your friends. Someone pulls up in a brand new car. Someone else is talking about their vacation to some expensive resort. Someone's wearing designer clothes that cost more than your monthly rent. And you're sitting there in your regular clothes, driving your regular car, living your regular life. And you feel, what? Small? Like you're not winning? Like everyone else has figured something out that you haven't? Like you're falling behind because you're not showing off? But here's the thing that's fascinating. The people who are actually building real wealth, the people who are going to be financially secure in 10 years, the people who are actually winning, they're often the ones who look the most normal. They're the ones who aren't flexing. They're the ones who are still driving regular cars, wearing regular clothes, living regular lives. And it's not because they don't have the money to upgrade, it's because they understand something that most people don't. And I spend way too much time thinking about money and what it actually means to be wealthy, about the difference between looking rich and being rich, about why the people who look the least successful are often the most financially secure. I've noticed something really interesting. There's an inverse relationship between how much you show off and how much you actually have. The people who appear the most successful are often the ones with the least real wealth. And the people who look completely normal are often the ones who are actually building serious money. And I think understanding this could literally change how you think about status, about success, about what it means to actually win with money. Because the truth is, looking normal isn't boring. Looking normal is one of the most powerful wealth-building strategies that exists. Let me start with something that most people don't realize is happening. There's a trap, and it's called the visibility trap. It's the idea that the more visible your wealth is, the more wealthy you must be. But that's backwards. When you buy expensive things, when you wear designer clothes, when you drive a luxury car, when you take exotic vacations, you're essentially broadcasting your wealth to the world. And here's what happens. People adjust their perception of you based on what they see. If you're driving a Tesla, people think you're wealthy. If you're carrying a designer bag, people think you're successful. If you're posting vacation photos from Bali, people think you're winning. But here's the thing, none of that actually tells you anything about their net worth. None of that tells you how much money they actually have. I knew someone who was driving a Range Rover, beautiful car, cost about $80,000. Everyone assumed he was rich. But you know what? He was financing it. His monthly payment was $1,200. That's $14,400 a year going to a car that's depreciating. Meanwhile, his actual net worth was probably negative. He had more debt than assets. But he looked rich. He felt rich. People treated him like he was rich. And in the social sense, he was winning. But financially, he was losing. This is the visibility trap. The more you spend on visible things, things that other people can see and judge you by, the less actual wealth you build, because that money isn't going toward investments, it's going toward appearance. It's going toward what people think of you. It's going toward status. And the tragedy is that the status is fake. It's based on an illusion. The moment you stop spending on visible things, the status disappears, because it was never real to begin with. Okay, so here's the interesting opposite of that. There's what I call the wealth invisibility paradox, and it's this. The people who are actually wealthy often look completely normal. They look boring. They look like they don't have money. The billionaire wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, the millionaire driving a Honda Civic, the person with millions in the bank wearing clothes from Target. These aren't stories. These are actual patterns. And there's a reason for this. When you're actually wealthy, when you don't have to prove anything to anyone, when you're secure in who you are and what you have, you don't need to spend money on things that make you look successful. You just live your life. I read about a guy who made several $100 million. You know what he drove? An old Honda. You know what he wore? Regular clothes. And the reason was simple. He had no one to prove anything to. He didn't need other people's approval. He was secure. So he spent his money on things that actually mattered. Investments, experiences with family, meaningful stuff. Not on looking good for people he didn't really know. Compare that to someone making $50,000 a year who buys a $30,000 car so people will think they're successful. Who's actually winning here? The guy with the $100 million and the old Honda, obviously. But here's the thing that blows my mind. Most people are making the opposite choice. Most people are choosing to look successful over actually being successful. They're choosing appearance over wealth. They're choosing the short-term social win over the long-term financial security. And I think this comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of what actual wealth is and what it should mean to you. Because if you understand that actual wealth is freedom, that actual wealth is security, that actual wealth is the ability to make choices without financial stress, then looking normal doesn't seem like losing. It seems like winning. Let me introduce you to a concept that's not talked about much, but it's incredibly powerful. It's called stealth wealth, and it's basically the practice of having money without showing it, of being wealthy while looking normal. Stealth wealth has some incredible advantages that people don't usually think about. First, it gives you actual freedom. When people don't know you have money, they don't ask you for money. They don't judge you. They don't treat you differently. You can just live your life. Second, it protects you. If no one knows you have money, you're not a target for scams, for people trying to take advantage of you, for relatives asking for handouts. You're just a normal person. Third, it gives you optionality. You can choose who to associate with based on whether you like them, not based on whether they're impressed by your stuff. You can make career decisions based on what you actually want to do, not based on whether it pays enough to maintain your lifestyle. Fourth, and maybe most importantly, it forces you to actually spend money on things that matter. You can't just buy status symbols. You have to actually think about what brings you happiness. And usually that's not the expensive car. It's experiences, it's relationships, it's security, it's time, it's freedom. There's a woman I know who's worth about $10 million. You would never know it. She shops at Target. She drives a Subaru. She lives in a modest house. And you know what? She's happier than any of the people I know who are constantly flexing their wealth. Because she's not living for other people's approval. She's living her life. She's secure. She doesn't have to prove anything. And that, honestly, is what actual wealth feels like. Here's something that's really important to understand. When you're displaying your wealth, when you're buying expensive things, when you're trying to look successful, you're participating in a comparison game. And the comparison game is rigged. You always lose. Because there's always someone with more. There's always someone with a nicer car, a bigger house, more expensive clothes, a more exotic vacation. So if you're trying to win by comparison, you're trying to chase something that has no finish line. You're on a treadmill that never stops. But here's what happens when you stop participating in the comparison game, when you decide to just look normal, when you decide that you don't care if your car is as nice as someone else's car, when you decide that you're not going to try to impress people with your stuff. Suddenly, you're free. You're not constantly comparing yourself. You're not constantly feeling like you're not enough. You're not constantly trying to one-up the people around you. And you have more money because you're not spending it on status symbols. You're spending it on things that actually matter. The irony is that the people who stop playing the comparison game are the ones who actually win. They build wealth, they have freedom, they have security, and everyone else is still trying to impress people with their stuff. Let me break down what it actually costs to look wealthy. What does it actually cost to participate in the status game? Let's say you want to look like someone who's making $100,000. You need a nice car. That's at least $1,000 a month in payments. You need nice clothes. That's maybe $300 a month. You need to eat at nice restaurants and go to nice bars and clubs. That's another $800 a month. You need a nice apartment in a nice neighborhood. That's maybe $2,000 a month. Add it all up, $4,100 a month. That's $49,200 a year. And that's just to look like you're making $100,000. But you are making $100,000, so you have about $50,000 left for taxes and actual living expenses. But wait, there's more. You have to maintain the image. The car breaks down, you have to fix it. The clothes get old and you have to replace them. The apartment needs things. You're constantly maintaining this image and it's expensive. So here's the real question. Is it worth it? Are you actually happier when you look wealthy? Are you actually more successful? Are people actually treating you better? From what I can see, the answer is no. You're just stressed about money because you're spending it all on looking good. You're not actually building anything. You're just maintaining an appearance. Whereas the person who looks normal, who's driving the regular car, who's wearing regular clothes, who's living in the regular apartment, they're building wealth. They're investing. They're creating actual security. And in 10 years, who's actually winning? The person with the appearance of wealth or the person with actual wealth? Here's something interesting that happens when you're not flexing, when you're not trying to look successful. The quality of your relationships actually improves. When you're displaying wealth, when you're trying to look impressive, you're attracting a certain kind of person. You're attracting people who are interested in what you have, not who you are. People who want to be around you because of the image you're projecting. People who are also playing the comparison game. But when you're just being normal, when you're not trying to impress anyone, you attract different people. You attract people who actually like you, people who want to be around you because of who you are, not what you have, people who are more genuine. And those relationships are worth more. They're deeper, they're more fulfilling, because they're not based on an illusion. I think about this a lot. The wealthiest, most secure people I know have the simplest social lives. They're not constantly going to exclusive events. They're not constantly surrounding themselves with people trying to impress them. They're just living their lives with people they actually care about. Meanwhile, people who are constantly flexing, constantly trying to look successful, they're exhausted. They're maintaining relationships with people who only care about their appearance. They're trapped in a social game that's exhausting and unfulfilling. And from a financial perspective, they're also losing because they're constantly spending money to maintain the image. So there's this interesting thing that happens when you decide to look normal. Your relationships improve, your finances improve, and your actual quality of life improves. All three things get better at the same time. There's something really profound about having money and nobody knowing it. It's a kind of freedom that's hard to describe unless you've experienced it. When people don't know you have money, they treat you like a normal person. They don't try to sell you things. They don't try to scam you. They don't ask you for money. They don't judge you. You just exist. And from that position, you can make choices based on what you actually want, not based on what looks good. You can take a job that pays less if it's more fulfilling because you're not locked into maintaining an image. You can live where you want, not where looks impressive. You can spend time how you want, not how looks successful. This is the real freedom that wealth provides, and it's only available if you're willing to look normal. I think about someone who makes $1 million a year, but is locked into a $5,000 a month apartment, a $3,000 a month car payment, expensive restaurants, expensive vacations, expensive everything. They're not free. They're locked into maintaining the image. They can't step away from the money. They're trapped by the lifestyle they've built. Compare that to someone who makes $200,000 but lives like they make $100,000. They have the same freedom as the millionaire, but they got there faster and with less stress because they were willing to look normal. Okay, so how do you actually do this? How do you stop flexing? How do you transition from trying to look successful to actually being successful? First, you have to understand that looking normal doesn't mean not having nice things. It means not buying things to impress other people. It means buying things because they serve a purpose or because they bring you actual joy, not because of what people will think. Second, you have to get comfortable with not impressing people. You have to let go of the need for other people's approval. This is hard. Our brains are wired for social approval, but it's also incredibly freeing. Third, you have to actually track where your money is going. How much are you spending on things just to look good? How much are you spending on appearance versus actual happiness? Once you see the number, you can make a conscious choice. Fourth, you have to make the decision intentionally. You have to decide that looking normal is okay, that it's actually better than looking impressive, that it's the path to actual wealth and freedom. Fifth, you have to stick with it when you get resistance, because you will get resistance. People will comment on your car, they'll ask why you don't dress better, they'll suggest you're not doing well financially. You have to be able to ignore that and stick with your decision. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Here's what happens over time when you decide to look normal. Over 5 years, over 10 years, over 20 years. The person who's flexing is constantly spending money. They're constantly stressed. They're constantly trying to maintain the image. They're not building wealth. They're maintaining appearance. Meanwhile, the person who's looking normal is building wealth. They're investing, they're compounding, they're creating actual security. And then something happens. After 10 years, the person who looked normal has enough wealth that they could actually afford to flex if they wanted to. They could buy the nice car, they could live in the fancy neighborhood, they could do all the things. But by that point, they usually don't want to, because they've experienced the freedom of not having to prove anything, because they understand that the appearance doesn't matter, because they've found actual happiness in things that don't cost money. So they stay normal, and they continue to build wealth, and they have freedom and security and real happiness. Meanwhile, the person who was always flexing is still trying to impress people. They're still stressed, they're still not building wealth, they're still on the treadmill. And the gap between them keeps growing. There's something I've noticed about truly wealthy people. They have a kind of quiet confidence that people who are flexing don't have. They don't need to prove anything. They don't need to impress anyone. They just exist. And that quiet confidence is magnetic. People are drawn to it, not because of what they have, but because of who they are, because they're secure, because they're comfortable with themselves. This is the real power of looking normal. It's not just about building wealth, it's about who you become in the process. You become someone who's secure, someone who's confident, someone who doesn't need external validation. And that version of you is more successful in every area of life, in relationships, in career, in happiness, in everything. So here's what I want you to understand. Looking normal isn't boring. Looking normal isn't losing. Looking normal is actually the fastest path to real wealth. It's the path to freedom. It's the path to security. It's the path to actual happiness. The person who looks like they're winning is often losing. They're trading actual wealth for the appearance of wealth. They're trading freedom for status. They're trading security for the approval of people who don't actually matter. But the person who looks completely normal, they're building something real. They're creating actual wealth. They're developing real security. They're buying their freedom $1 at a time. And in 10 years, in 20 years, the difference will be staggering. So the next time you feel the urge to buy something just to look good, to impress people, to show that you're successful, I want you to pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it brings me actual joy, or am I doing this because I want other people to think I'm successful? If it's the second one, don't do it. Save the money, invest it, build actual wealth instead of the appearance of wealth. Because the quiet confidence that comes from actual wealth is worth more than any status symbol could ever be. The freedom is worth more. The security is worth more. The real happiness is worth more. So, be normal, look normal, and quietly, secretly let the wealth build. That's how you actually win. Thank you for thinking through this with me. If this resonated, please share it with someone who's caught in the flexing game. And let me know in the comments, what's one expensive status symbol you're going to stop buying so you can build actual wealth instead? Thanks for watching.